it's changing the dynamics a little bit. Let me put it that way.
I noticed that on your website, one of the issues that you talk about is net neutrality. I was wondering what the shape of the internet is in such a rural district. I would imagine that the internet is really important to a lot of people who maybe can't get to the doctor quickly, might want to be running online businesses. But we've been hearing all over the country about the problems with rural networks.
Sure. Yeah, we do have issues there, particularly in the central, more scarcely populated areas. And this administration assigned 2 executive orders saying how badly he wants, rural people to, have access. And of course, neither of those executive orders had any money attached to them at all, which of course is the biggest obstacle to accomplishing this. So this is definitely an infrastructure project that this country has to come together to create. But the almost in some ways, at least symbolically, more important issue is whether or not everyone's going to have access, whether you're wealthy or poor, to the same internet. And this is what my opponent, of course, is, after taking in $165,000 from telecom industries, he urged the FCC to end net neutrality so that these companies could maximize their income at the expense of his own constituents. Really quite a phenomenal. I mean, there are a lot of Republicans who wouldn't go quite that far, but he wasn't one of them. So yeah, that's a big issue in rural areas. I wouldn't say it rises to the level of issues related to ag policy and healthcare policy and education policy, but still a legitimate concern.
You mentioned that you have grandchildren. I was wondering what having grandchildren, having kids, but also having grandchildren does for your political outlook and the way you think about sort of the future of the politics of this country.
Oh, yeah, it absolutely does. Yeah, as I mentioned, I've been a rural person all my life. I love rural life. I mean, I love living in the countryside. Every day I walk out to go do chores. I almost have to pinch myself because it's so incredibly beautiful. And I feel just really, really fortunate to be able to, to live the life that we've chosen, that we've saved all our lives for and all of that. But it's disintegrating around us. I've watched it for 40 years. And this is, culturally, we're told that this is sort of a natural kind of phenomenon, that there's some mysterious economic force out there that forces rural places to deteriorate and farms to get bigger. And there's no unwillingness to happen, no one profiting excessively from it, which is, of course, a bunch of BS. This is absolutely being made to happen in the interest of profit and corporate profit. And I want that process stopped. But what's happened, and I knew, of course, on November 10th, 2016, that this is exactly what was going to happen, that process would not only be not stopped, it would jump into overdrive. And that's exactly what has happened. One of the things I think it's important to understand about farming and farm policy is that agribusinesses are paid by the acre, not by the farmer. So what they want to see is policy that's going to create corporatized super farms. They don't want a countryside filled with family farmers, because family farmers are creative, innovative. They figure out ways to get production without having to buy these super expensive products or fixing their own machinery or making do with used machinery or whatever it is. They don't want that. They want large corporate super farms. And that's going to create more dependence on their product, and then that's going to create a heightened ability to pay ever higher prices for those products. So you got a guy like Donald Trump walking into the White House who knows absolutely nothing about rural America, absolutely nothing about agriculture, and it's like a field of clover. I mean, agribusiness lobbyists are able, he doesn't even want to spend 5 minutes on agriculture. So he's letting them, basically, it's like letting the fox guard the hen house. Yeah. And we see it in in virtually everything that comes out, even the tax bill. The Economic Research Service in Trump's own USDA indicated that, when they did their analysis of how this was going to spill out for farmers and ranchers, the lowest earning 20% of farmers and ranchers are actually going to see their tax burden go up because they don't want the lowest earning 20% of farmers and ranchers in business. They want them out of the way. And you'll see it in the farm bills. Both versions of the farm bills are just about allowing large corporate entities, basically, not allowing, but, allowing large corporate entities to replace family-run farms and ranches. That's what it's all about. And it's just, family farms, the system of family farms, independent, widely distributed producers of food, are a key ingredient to successful democracies. And that's just not from the U.S. experience. That's going all the way back to the democracies in Greece and Rome, in the early days in Rome. So we know that you want democracy to work, you need family-run, independent producers of food surrounding small cities, small towns. That's always been a key ingredient. If we convert to large corporations, just a few of them controlling our food supply, then democracy is really over and can't continue to exist. So that's, why I'm running. I want to see a rural way of life preserved. I want to see family farms preserved and democracy preserved in the process.
Is there anything else that you want to make sure that we talk about?
Healthcare. I said a little bit about it, but I would like just to say a little bit more, Kelly, because, I think people, you've got this, you got corporate America controlling the media, and they're selling, the efficiency of the free market and all of this kind of stuff. And they, of course, want that to continue in the healthcare arena. But I like to point to the fact that really from day one in this country, we understood that there's some things that are really too precious, too near and dear to human happiness, to be left to market forces. And in the days of the founding fathers, they could have just let the whole business of mail delivery, let that go to private businesses and enterprises, but they determined that was too crucial to human life, to human happiness, to leave to a for-profit business, which might go out of business, which might decide that, remote residents weren't cost-effective enough for mail delivery. So they wrote a government-run postal system right into the Constitution. And later, it was some years later, but we decided that, every kid deserves the highest quality education available. And that's, what the founders of our public schools said. They ought to be the equivalent of the wealthy academies on the Eastern Seaboard. They certainly were saying that in Nebraska. The profit motive had no place in either of those endeavors. And I think it's time that we admit that healthcare, everyone, wealthy or poor, deserves the highest quality healthcare available. We've got to move away from this system, healthcare system that's designed to maximize corporate shareholder income, the one that's designed to maximize the health and well-being of ordinary citizens. And that's not too much to ask. The rest of the world has already gone there. We just simply have to join them. So fighting for Medicare for all is near and dear to my heart, and that's been a piece of my campaign from day one. And I'm finding a very receptive audience out there. There are obviously people way off to the right, libertarian types that just can't get their arms around that. But I think reasonable rural people understand that this has gotten out of control, and it's time to move on. The system doesn't work anymore.
If our listeners would like to help out your campaign, how can they do that?
Well, TheobaldForCongress.com is the website. Obviously, you can donate securely. It's one of the things I've had to learn as a congressional candidate, how to ask for money. Doesn't come easy for a rural Midwesterner, I can tell you, but I eventually learned how to do it. I just say another word or two about that, Kelly. It is frustrating because people look at the district on paper and they say, oh, my God, a Democrat doesn't have a chance there. So why waste your money? I really, really find that incredibly frustrating because one of the things that we want to do as a Democratic Party is combat the tyranny of the majority and stand up in defense of the minority. And rural people matter. For people to turn their backs on the rural residents of Nebraska, is just not in keeping with the spirit of what the Democratic Party is all about. So I find that sentiment just really distasteful, and I do everything I can to say, look, rural people matter. So let's not ignore them by ignoring candidates who are running against long odds. So anyway, that's what I'd like to say about that.
I love it. We'll put your link up on our website. And I'm from a rural, maybe not quite that rural, but rural-ish area myself in Ohio. And I agree. I think those areas really matter. I did flee to the big city, but I'm still deeply invested in the well-being of where I'm from. So I agree. Yeah.
Good. Glad to hear that. Thank you for this opportunity, Kelly. It's been fun talking to you.
Yeah, it's been so fun having you on, and I really want to thank you for running. I think it's so important to, especially in districts where incumbents have been able to go unchallenged, that people are stepping up and saying, no, you don't get to run unchallenged. So thank you for running.
That's right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Two Broads Talking Politics. Our theme song is called Are You Listening? Off of the album Elephant Shaped Trees by the band Immunuri, and we're using it with permission of the band. Our logo and other original artwork is by Matthew Wethlin and was created for use by this podcast.